Hey, what's going on, guys? It's ETA Prime back here again. Today I want to show off the new Odroid Go. I finally got my hands on one. They're on Amazon right now for about $32, $41 shipped in the United States. The Odroid Go is essentially a do-it-yourself, portable, handheld, retro gaming device. It's able to play NES games, Game Boy, Game Boy Color, Sega Master System, and Game Gear games. Now, this is not going to blow any of the other single-board computers that I do reviews on out of the water, but this is an awesome little device, and I definitely think it's worth 32 bucks. The kit comes with everything we need to put this together except for a small Phillips head screwdriver and a micro SD card. We have a 1200 milliamp hour lithium polymer 3.7 volt battery, the main board itself, micro USB cable, speaker, a 10-pin GPIO jumper, and a 2.4 inch color LCD display. We also get the shell and the buttons for the Game Boy style handheld. In this video, I'm going to do a quick assembly. All the instructions are on Odroid's website, along with the file that you need to put on the SD card to get everything up and running. I'll leave links in the description. This is super easy to do. My 6-year-old daughter could put one of these together in less than 15 minutes. Before we get into assembly, I kind of want to talk about the specs of this unit. This will not even be on par with the Raspberry Pi Zero, but with the right coding and the right emulators, this can definitely play some awesome retro games. The CPU is a custom ESP32 chip. It's a Rover CPU, 2 cores operating anywhere from 80 MHz to 240 MHz. It does have Bluetooth and Wi-Fi built in. This CPU was definitely not designed for gaming of any sort, but they've made it work, and it works fairly well for what this is. Odroid is celebrating its 10th anniversary by going back to its roots. Now, this is something I actually had no clue that Odroid did, but their very first device was a handheld Android gaming device. I'm actually in the process of trying to get a hold of one. Now, this isn't going to stand up to even a $20 Walmart Android phone nowadays, but I think it would still be cool to have one of these. So besides retro gaming on the Odroid Go, they offer something called Coding Camp. It's a pretty cool little thing that Odroid does. You can go over to their wiki page and program different applications to run on the Odroid Go. We're going to go ahead and assemble this. Really simple to do. All you'll need is a screwdriver. The very first thing I suggest is putting the screen in, but we need to make sure it's going to go the right way. So we're going to take the main board here. This is the front of the main board where the buttons will go. We're going to place it inside of the case. There are 2 little notches at the very top. We're going to line everything up. And this is the connector for our LCD screen. So we now know that the cable needs to bend over this way to be slotted in. I'm going to pull the protective film off of the front of the screen, but I am going to save it. I'm just going to stick it right here. There are 4 little lockers. Just going to place it in and lock it down. Make sure you don't put too much force on it. You may have to take it back out the first time and place the bottom in first. I'll just take it out here, place the bottom under the 2 bottom tabs, and snap the top in. There we go. Screen's in place. It's not going anywhere. Now I'm going to take that protective film, place it over here so I don't get any scratches or fingerprints while I'm building the rest of the unit. We already know which way the board goes. We have to have the buttons facing outwards towards the front of the unit. Before we mount the main board, let's put all of our buttons in. All of these buttons only go one way. You can't really mess that up. It's now time to mount the main board here. There are some lineup pins at the very top. They made it really easy to assemble this. Just make sure all my buttons are in place. And this is held in by 3 screws. So they supplied a bunch of screws for us. I'm going to start the one in the very middle first. You don't need to jam down on these. They just need to be snug. Do not over tighten them. If you break the plastic, then you'll have to order a whole nother kit. 3 screws to hold the main board down. Everything's looking great so far. Just make sure my buttons feel good. And I'll tell you what, the buttons on the front of this and the D-pad feel amazing. Let's go ahead and connect the LCD screen to the board. There's a little black slider here. We're going to slide the ribbon cable right underneath there. Might take you a few times to get it in there, but as soon as it slides in, you know it's in there. I'm going to pull the black tab back out, line it up, push it in, and we're going to lock it back down. So the LCD is now connected to the main board. Don't forget about the power switch slider. It is soldered to the board, but they offer this little plastic slider here. I did have to turn the unit on, and it's going to line right up in there. Get a little closer so you can see it. Make sure it goes on and off, and we're done with that. Now all we need to do is insert the speaker, the battery, and then put the back of the case on. We'll start out with the speaker. Both of the connectors on the main board are clearly marked. So place the speaker where it says speaker and the battery where it says battery. They only go in one way. As soon as I get this plugged in here, I'm going to curl the wire around so it stays out of the way. Just going to bend that speaker around there. Kind of give it a twist so all the wire stays loomed up in here. Now it's time for the battery. Connectors only go in one way. And the unit's already powering up. Need to turn that switch back off till we get the SD card ready. Same thing here. We kind of want to stay out of the way of this one screw hole. So I'm going to wrap it around there. Just keep that wire out of the way. We are ready to put the back on. We're done with the unit pretty much. There are 6 or 7 screws on the back of here. Just put them in. Like I mentioned, don't tighten them up too much, but make sure it's nice and snug. And there we have it. We are done with the build. So to charge this unit up, there is a micro USB port right here. You're just going to charge it with a little 1 amp charger. I am going to actually wait. There's also a front plastic screen protector. Now I'm going to wait on that until I get everything set up. Then I'll put that on just in case I have to take it back apart. I just don't want to risk scratching this screen up. So now all we need to do is install the operating system on the SD card. Now this is much easier than flashing RetroPie for a Raspberry Pi or an Odroid. We just need to place a few files on here and some ROMs. It's going to boot directly from this SD card and we can start playing. So let's go ahead and move over to my PC. I'm going to show you exactly what we need to do to get this up and running. Alright, so all we need to do now is set up the SD card. So I have a 4 GB micro SD card right here. We just need to right click, format, and it needs to be in the FAT file system, not FAT32, not NTFS, FAT. I just named mine 4 GB SD, start, okay. Now I'm using a 4 GB because I'm not going to put many games on here and I just had an extra one laying around. Next thing we need are the files from Odroid's website. We're going to scroll on down here. I'll leave a link in the description. We need to download the Make SD for importing ROMs. Grab the skeleton files, the zip file here. You can download it, direct download. It's going to download for you. Now I already have mine on my desktop. I'm going to right click. I'm going to extract to SD card. Open it up. We need to take the Odroid folder and the ROMs folder and place it on our SD card that we just formatted FAT. Just going to pop it right over there. Inside of the ROMs folder, there's a GameBoy folder, Game Boy Color, Game Gear, NES, and Sega Master System. I'm going to be focusing on some NES games. Now we need to find some ROMs. I have a bunch of them on my computer. No intro ROM sets. Nintendo Entertainment System. And I'll just grab a few from here. I'll search some Mario. So I'm just going to copy all of these and I'm going to drag them over here. They actually do need to be extracted, so I'm just going to right click on them inside of the SD card, extract here. Now I can delete the zips. You can do it any other way you'd like. You can extract them on your desktop and just throw them right in the correct folders, but I just extracted them on the SD card. You're going to do the exact same thing for the other systems. Sega Master System, Game Gear, Game Boy Color, and Game Boy games. I have some Game Boy games in here. I use no intro ROM sets. Nintendo Game Boy, got a ton of them here. I just need to extract them and place them in the corresponding folder. Really easy to do. Just grab a few here, right click, extract here, delete the old zips, and that's it. I'm going to go ahead and load up the rest of these folders, and we're going to try this thing out. So all we need to do now is pop the SD card in, power the unit on, and it should boot right up for us. Let me get my camera situated so I can show you some gameplay here. I'm also going to try to capture the sound, but it will be captured on my camera. So what you got to remember here is this has two CPUs. They can run independently at speeds from 80 megahertz to 240 megahertz. With today's modern x86 CPUs reaching 5 gigahertz out of the box, this is considered very, very slow. We're going to get into some gameplay here. I did test out some Pokemon games with Game Boy Color and Game Boy. They run really well. I wanted to try something a little harder to run, Mega Man Extreme. The larger ROMs for each one of these systems do take a little longer to load than other games. But another thing to remember, this is the very first release of this so-called operating system for the Odroid Go. Over time, they may be able to add more emulators and give it a speed boost with loading games, better sound emulation, and all-around better performance. But straight out of the box, like it is right now, it's perfectly playable. The D-pad and the buttons feel like the original Game Boy buttons, and since they're using new rubbers here, it does feel a little firmer, which I actually prefer. If we press the home button, it's going to create a save state for us. Now we can restart this game and start exactly from where we left off. And right now, if I press B, it'll take me back into that same game exactly where I was. We're going to try a Game Gear game real quick. Now I was never a really big Game Gear fan, but there are some good Game Gear games out there. Hopefully in the near future they do add support for more systems like PC Engine and possibly even some MAME or FBA. That would be pretty cool to play some of those on here. The screen actually looks a lot better than I thought it would. It's 320 by 240 pixels. It's only 2.4 inches, but it does look great. In direct sunlight, you do get a lot of glare, but in the house or even in some shade, you shouldn't have any trouble at all playing this on the small screen. Looks pretty good. I'm going to try one more here. We're going to go with Game Boy. Now, NES works pretty well. There is a little bit of tearing in the first Mario Brothers. I have reported that to the Odroid team. Hopefully they're going to look into that. The unit itself handles Game Boy and Game Boy Color really well. Sega Master System also works, but I've never found any real good games on Master System that I enjoy playing, so I didn't even showcase it here. I think it's worth the price. Now, it's a cool little project to do on the weekend, or even on your lunch break in the middle of the week, because it only takes about 15 minutes to get one of these put together. It's a pretty cool little unit, and there's a lot more you can do with it besides retro gaming. It can be used as a simple Arduino unit. You can program it with the Arduino software suite on Mac, Linux, or Windows. There's a number of things that you can do with this, and I actually plan on making a few more videos on this. I would love to program my own Tetris game. And over on the Odroid website, there is a tutorial on how to do that using the Arduino interface. I'll probably make a tutorial on that, or just do it and show it off. So that's pretty much it for this video, guys. I really appreciate you watching. I can definitely recommend something like this if you want to get into building electronics or programming. Don't come into one of these things thinking you're going to get better emulation out of it than a Raspberry Pi 3, an XU4, a C2, or even a Raspberry Pi Zero, because you will not. This is just a fun $32 device that you can put together in your spare time and maybe program a few games for it. Game Boy, Game Boy Color, NES, Sega Master System, Game Gear run great right now. You will run into some games that have audio issues, like a lot of emulators out there. I think this is a step in the right direction for Odroid. Now, this is actually their second handheld, but their first based on some kind of CPU like this. If they get enough demand for this, they could always build another one that's even more powerful. If you want to get your hands on one, I'll leave links in the description. You can get them on Amazon or Hardkernle's website. Really appreciate you guys watching. If you could, hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, make sure you turn notifications on so you know when I upload my next video. And like always, thanks for watching.